On this episode of China Uncensored, between China and India, who won the border dispute? Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell, and I've got some bad news. I won't be able to make a name for myself as a reporter covering the war between China and India. I had it all planned out too. After the war was over, I'd sell the rights to my story and see it turned into a Bollywood sensation. Or a nationalistic Chinese thriller. Which movie I do would depend on who won the war, obviously. But unfortunately for my movie plans, peace has won the day. On Monday, India's Ministry of External Affairs posted this notice saying both sides have been talking to each other and there would be an expeditious disengagement of border personnel at the face-off site at Doklam. And now you'll never get to see my sick dance moves / fighting skills. Anyway, for those of you somehow new to the issue, Indian and Chinese troops have been facing off for the past 2 months. It's in an area called the Doklam Plateau, on the awkward three-way border between India, China, and Bhutan. Chinese soldiers were building a road in their own territory, except Bhutan was like, excuse me, that's our territory, not China's. And so Indian troops came to Bhutan's aid to help enforce that border. Not so much out of friendship, more because a Chinese road would be a security threat to India. So the conflict got pretty heated, like when Indian and Chinese troops chest-butted each other like drunk frat boys. And when Chinese state-run media was one step short of inciting war. And who could forget the time Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Modi faced off on a dragon and a tiger, and it looked like Xi was going to win until Modi, who, by the power of Grayskull, was able to overpower Xi Jinping and his dragon, which it turns out wasn't all that great because it was made in China. I just want to say, India's TV news is way more entertaining than America's. Anyway, as that animation showed, India was the clear winner in the border dispute.
Big diplomatic victory for the Indian government. India and China have agreed to begin disengagement of troops at Doklam.
Yes, hashtag Modi tames dragon, the most popular hashtag since... Oh. Hang on a second. What's that, Shelley? Okay, this just in from Chinese state-run media.
China said Monday it had made on-site checks of India's withdrawal of personnel and equipment from Donglang, also known as Doklam, after over 2 months of military standoff.
Wait a second. That Chinese host makes it sound like Indian troops withdrew first. So both sides are claiming victory now? Come on, they can't both be winners. This isn't kindergarten t-ball. Maybe it was a mutual withdrawal, but both sides' media just reported it in a biased way to play to their audiences. I've never heard of any media doing that before, but I suppose it's possible. I mean, the wording used by India's Ministry of External Affairs, expeditious disengagement, seems to be intentionally vague. As one expert told the Washington Post, clarity is the enemy of face-saving. So anyway, India can claim it got China to back off from construction, and China can talk about how it's a responsible big country. But I would say overall, India handled itself masterfully by refusing to give in until China backed down, while not being provoked by the rhetoric from the CCP. And this is a good lesson for other countries dealing with an aggressive Chinese regime. The Chinese regime was pushing its claim further than it should have. China kept claiming it had historical rights to the area, as per an agreement from the year 1890 between the UK and China's Qing dynasty. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with following an old treaty, except in this case, it's disputed, and China knew that Bhutan didn't recognize China's claim. And more importantly, the Chinese regime conveniently forgot that as recently as 1998, they'd agreed to maintain peace and tranquility until a final settlement is reached on the boundary, which they did not follow. So when the People's Liberation Army started building a road, India came to Bhutan's aid and refused to back down. Then the CCP brought up the 1890 treaty, and India brought up the 1998 treaty and refused to back down. Then the CCP directed its state-run media to threaten India with war. The idea, according to this article, was for the CCP to use ambiguity, risk manipulation, and controlling the narrative to win without fighting. But India still refused to back down. And that was a brave and risky move, considering that if even one soldier from either side had accidentally fired a shot, it could have instantly triggered a very serious conflict. But India understood the political game. Chinese leader Xi Jinping didn't really want a war. That's because if the PLA didn't immediately win a decisive victory, it would hurt Xi Jinping's reputation ahead of the 19th Party Congress later this year. And also, the Indian Prime Minister did something smart. He met with Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the G20 summit in July. They didn't agree on the border dispute, but they agreed to at least have their people call their people and talk about it. So for the last month or so, they've had back-channel discussions aimed at resolving the conflict, even as the media kept blowing the story up. So how did it get resolved? Indian troops withdrew from the region on August 25th, and Chinese troops announced they'd stop building that road, at least for now, claiming that weather was a factor. It's the international relations version of, I would have kicked your butt, but I didn't want to get blood all over my new shirt. So even though there's no clear winner or loser, both sides get to save face. And in the end, isn't that the important thing? Besides avoiding war, I mean. So is this the end to the border dispute between India and China? Let's see what India's army chief has to say.
The recent standoff in the Doklam Plateau by the Chinese side attempting to change the status quo are issues which we need to be wary about, and I think such kind of incidents are likely to increase in the future.
Wait, such kinds of incidents are likely to increase in the future? That's terrible. Or is it? And coming up after the break, the most dangerous job in China. And it's not what you think. Clickbait. Well, you might have to wait for my Bollywood adventure, but you don't have to wait for China Uncensored. Every Friday, we upload full half-hour episodes of China Uncensored for free to our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. You could have seen this segment and much more if you had visited ChinaUncensored.tv. But history doesn't have to repeat itself. Check out ChinaUncensored.tv.